Good morning, everybody. Steve here from The Varied Life, and today's video is going to be a little controversial. So let's embrace that, and we'll get on to what we're talking about. Bodybuilders and fitness influencers are dying from heart-related events. And is Joey Swole next? I mean, how far are we taking the social media, fitness, monster mass steroid abuse trend that we have going on, and why are people doing it? To me, it's just really interesting. I grew up in the days, I'm 58 this year, so yeah, I've got a little bit of time behind me. So I remember the Dave Draper, I remember the early bodybuilders, the OGs, the Arnold Schwarzenegger when he came into his place. And despite everybody saying that, yeah, back then everybody was doing steroids, and now they're doing them even more. It's getting very, very controversial, because what we're seeing is that bodybuilding is pretty much the most dangerous sport on the planet in regards to heart-related incidents. We're talking heart attack, stroke, we're talking complications from oversized organs, and seizures. I mean, it's liver, kidney problems that are really advanced, and people are just dropping like flies compared to other sports. And I tried making this video before, and it was really kind of long, but so I wanted to condense this information. But first thing I want to take a look at is this article here. It's from 2016, but it still proves the point of big dead bodybuilders and the price. Basically, it goes over on how, lean and muscular corpses, and that basically that's what we're seeing today. And even more so, the abuse of anabolic steroids. We're talking like trenbolone, we're talking D-bol, we're talking all of the things that I'm never ever going to take because, insulin, there's people that take insulin and steroids, and, the whole goal is to get muscle. It's not about health, as we see here. And unfortunately, like this guy here, he died of a heart attack at the age of 41 and died at age 47 while waiting for, or he had a heart attack at 41, then he died at 47 waiting for a heart transplant. Now, the interesting thing is that the majority of these people, these mass monsters, as they're called, is that steroids are rampant. And with social media and the internet and all this stuff, now it's becoming widely accepted. Now it's like, before it was like, shh, quiet, shh, don't tell anybody that, but this is how we get big, with a lot of work and a lot of food and so on and so forth. Steroids just don't make you big just because you take steroids. You have to put in the exercise, you have to put in the recovery, you have to eat and maintain and all this stuff. But the problem is, you're going way beyond your physical limits, your natural limits, and that can be problematic, because then that ties into body dysmorphia, which is, I think it's akin to a drug addict. So if you have a meth addict, a heroin addict, whatever it is, and they don't regret anything, they want their next fix, and they don't have any regrets. They don't regret that, they don't have any teeth, or that they lost their job, or they're turning tricks and, doing BJs behind the convenience store to try to get their next fix, the money for the next fix. I equate that to, these influencers who are abusing steroids and saying, oh, I don't have any regrets. One of the interesting things, and we'll show it a little bit later, is Ronnie Coleman, who was an 8-time Mr. Olympia winner, and the dude was huge, and he ran into some very big problems, severe body dysmorphia, obviously a huge monster of a man that couldn't be attained without steroids. And then he was able to get more muscle, so he's able to work harder, so he's able to get bigger, so he's able to do more weight. So he wanted to get better, and so he did more steroids, and he did more weight, and then it just kind of spiraled out of control until, next thing you know, he had like 13 surgeries, different surgeries, surgery complications. He didn't listen to his doctors, and the end result was quite horrible. And we'll show how bad it ended up for him. And by the way, me and him are like only a year or two apart. So anyway, it's really interesting going through this article and on how many people have died. And the interesting thing that caught my eye was the studies here. 2014 study and a connection between anabolic steroids and cardiovascular function. The results suggest that heavy steroid users are more likely to have irregular heart function and higher mortality rates compared to natural lifters. 2012 report from the American Journal of Cardiology reviewed 50 different studies. So in other words, it was a meta-analysis, and it came to the similar conclusion: steroid use can be a valid and significant factor in heart-related deaths. In the Journal of American Society of Nephrology, looked into the prevalence of kidney disease because your kidneys has to process, it's your own purification system. And with steroid use, it really overtaxes your kidneys. And over 2 years, they found signs of disease in the majority of lifters, some of it irreversible and irreparable. That's concerning. There was also, I've been very tempted to do steroids. Because of, look at how big you can get. I think for a lot of men, to look more muscular, get bigger, and so on and so forth, that can definitely be a temptation, and it was with me. But I like making an informed decision, so when I was researching and looking at all of these people, even way back in the day, I saw a higher prevalence of bodybuilders dying early and dying from heart-related events like strokes, heart attacks, so on and so forth, than the rest of the population. So it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Out of all the sports in the world, bodybuilding has the most where people are dying younger and younger. And back in the day, it was like bodybuilders dying at age 50. Oh my gosh, what a travesty. Now we have bodybuilders dying in their 50s. We have them dying in their late 40s, mid 40s, early 40s, 30s, and we even have bodybuilders dying in their 20s, which is heart-related incidents. And it's just insane. Of course, you look at their physiques are insane, and then you kind of figure, hey, that's probably part of the insanity, the cause and effect thing that goes on. You can only abuse your body so much, and then it's going to react. And unfortunately, there's people who say, oh, steroids are safe. I've been doing them for 20, 30 years. And it's like, you know what? Meth addicts say the exact same thing. So do heroin users and alcoholics. Oh, I've been drinking for, 50 years. And it's like, but your body's a mess. The quality of life, you're just dragging yourself down, and you have no regrets. And that's a shame, because we see this excuse mentality that, well, you're going to die anyway. You shouldn't have any regrets. You only live once, YOLO and all that stuff. And when I was looking at studies at the time, it was before this, but even and later, because I've been tempted a number of times to look into steroids. But each time I look and study, I come up with more reasons why not to. And one study that I don't have a copy of it here, but basically what happened is that the researchers looked at people who took steroids as prescribed medication for illnesses or diseases that they had, and the researchers wanted to see, well, what type of effect did it have on their hearts, mortality, and so on and so forth. It ends up with these people with normally prescribed steroids over a long period of use, they had higher rates of heart-related incidents, heart attack, stroke, and so on and so forth. So in my mind, when I read that, it was like, okay, and seeing all the people that were dying, all the bodybuilders, and now it's gone exponentially worse with the advent of the internet and social media, and now this thing in our world where do whatever you want, it doesn't really matter. Now we've got to a point of where it is so unregulated, it is so untested, and now you have people that are getting paid to post on Instagram and social media. For each single post, they're getting obscene amounts of money. And whereas before, a long time ago, oh, you do steroids, obviously you do steroids, we're not going to do business with you. But now, businesses and companies don't care. They want that revenue. They want that traffic. And traffic, it relates to clicks, and clicks relates to sales, and so on and so forth. So really, it's I think we've lost the morality of what we have in the United States and around the world, for that matter, when it comes to morals in business and advertising. And whereas not too many years ago, companies that would not sponsor or hire a fitness shit influencer who's jacked up on steroids, who is a monster of a person, especially people at young ages or even middle age in their 20s and 30s. I guess middle age is like 40 and 50s. I'm 58 this year. They don't care anymore. And so now it's like, oh, I can get paid to do this. Boom. And now, everybody's a fitness influencer. Everybody's doing this. And it's at the expense of their health, unfortunately. So besides these other studies, when we look at pro bodybuilders versus other athletes, what we see is performance enhancing drugs, and that basically cardiovascular disease and drug overdose are found to cause an overwhelming majority of deaths, with wrestlers being 15 times more likely to experience a cardiovascular related death and a shocking 122 times more likely to die from drugs compared to non-athletes. In the last 15 years, roughly 1 in 5 wrestler deaths were connected with recreational drug overdose. It's really interesting. And 2012 study in that journal of cardiology, the mortality rates among NFL players actually saw that they were overall almost half as likely to die from comparably aged non-athletes, though the football players were not surprisingly associated with significantly higher rates of neurological and skeletal muscle disease. The interesting thing about that is that way back in the day, the NFL was, the sport of America and so on and so forth, and it was clean, it was wholesome. And then we found out that people were doing steroids. We found out that Major League Baseball was America's sport, and it was pure and untouched. And then, the Barry Bonds thing, and then the home runs and all this, and all of a sudden we're finding out, excuse me, everybody and their grandmother is doing steroids. And so no wonder we're getting people that are bigger, faster, stronger, smashing records like it's nothing as compared to yesteryear. And then we see similar things in other sports as well. It just kind of pulled the rug out from the purity of the sports. And once that happened, it was just a downhill battle from then on out. And then with that being said, it got so much worse in bodybuilding, it was exponentially worse. So, it ends up, this is a pretty interesting article, and it calls out the dead, and, died from a heart attack at 47, died of a heart attack at age 22. This guy died of kidney failure in 2003 at age 30, died a heart attack in 2004 at age 30. Died of a heart attack from 2004 at age 30. Another one is age 32, age 33, age 33, age 35, 37, 37, 40, 40, 41, 44, 44, 44, 45, 45, 45, 45, 47. We're getting in the 40s, some 50s and 52s. And then it continues on, people dying from kidney transplants because their kidneys are crap. It's just amazing. Died at age 34. This guy died at age 34. This guy died retired at age 35, competed twice, and received a kidney transplant in 2003. Died 6 weeks coma after complications of surgery at age 39. Retired after developing signs of kidney problems at age 35. So what we're seeing is just a ton of people that are dying from steroid abuse. And, here's another article is talking about, the safety of steroids and the prevalency of heart attacks. And it just goes through all of these people that, died early, 37. I remember that guy there, days before his 55th birthday. And it goes through, and we've got so many people that have died from steroids that it's just kind of insane on what we're seeing. And unfortunately, this trend is getting even further and further along. And steroids and the risks of using steroids, it's amoral. It doesn't care. Steroids are not evil in and of themselves. They don't have any, they're not from Satan or anything like that. Is a chemical, and they're chemicals, and they're synthetic, and if you abuse them, there's going to be this anything that you put into your body is going to have an effect on your body in some way, shape, or form. And usually it's dependent upon dose. Excuse me. But what we end up seeing is that with massive steroid abuse, we're seeing people die in their 20s and 30s. And unfortunately, steroids don't care about your morals, doesn't care about your positivity, and so on and so forth. And, there's one person I want to take a look at, as we mentioned here, and that is Joey Swole. Joey Swole is the CEO of Gym Positivity that we see there. And it ends up, this was a day ago, he said, I had a little scare this week that was to be a routine 35 to 45 minute heart surgery, ended up being 6 hours on the table. In the end, I made it. I'm home 100% for the first time in years. My heart is the best it's ever been. I'm so thankful for the incredible doctors, nurses, and staff in the hospital. Joey Swole's a pretty awesome guy. And he does those videos where, he calls out stupid people. And Joey he's a jack dude. Let's take a look and I'll show you what I mean. Let's see the photos of Joey, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a picture of Joey. Joey is obviously on steroids, but for some reason he gets a pass because he's the CEO of Gym Positivity. The problem with this is that, to get that type of physique, you have to do steroids. It's just plain and simple. But the thing is, he gets a pass because he's the positivity gym guy. He goes against the stupid people in the gym, which I congratulate him for. I really, I'm subscribed to him. I love all his videos. It's, he's the common sense when it comes to, how to act like a mature person, a civil mature person. But really, the dude is abusing steroids. That is 100% true. The problem that I have is that Joey Swole this hasn't been the first time that he's been in the hospital. So with him, I really just don't understand why somebody who has, and it's an unrelated heart condition from what I've seen in the other posts. So I can only take him at his word. But if you have heart-related conditions, and that causes you problems in your life, and you still choose to do steroids and to abuse steroids to get to the size that he is, obviously you cannot attain that size without steroid abuse. And then you go to the hospital to get a routine heart surgery. I don't think there's such a thing as a routine heart surgery. It's routine 30 to 45 minute heart surgery. That's not routine. Routine is not needing surgery. It's kind of like when I go to the VA to get checked and they say, well, what type of pain do you have? And it's like, well, the normal amount. And they said the normal amount is no pain. Okay. See what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. If you have a heart-related situation where you've had surgeries in the past and you have surgery again, why would you continue with steroids? And I think it comes down to body dysmorphia and being tempted to use steroids many times in the past. But I keep going back and looking at research and seeing all these people just dropping like flies in their 60s, 50s, and now 40s. And now there's this huge surge of people who are dying in their 30s and their 20s. It's like, I don't need any more convincing to not ever touch steroids. I can say that unequivocally. And I've never done steroids. I was natural for 53, 54 years. And then I got tested. I had low testosterone. I was tired. I was fatigued. I'd sit on the couch after work and I'm out, in 30 seconds. Just things were going bad. it ended up that a fellow veteran told me and said, hey, you might want to get your testosterone levels checked, because he clued me in on a report that said, there seems to be this link between PTSD and low testosterone. And so not that that is a cause, but it's just kind of interesting because those people that do have PTSD, thank you, Uncle Sam, for the never-ending gift, they end up having low testosterone. And it's because of the trauma and whatever, it causes some physiological problem within the body. So he suggested that I go get tested. I did, had low testosterone. So now I'm on a normal dose of TRT, which is about 100, 120 a week, which is below normal. A normal dose is about 200 per week for an injection of testosterone cypionate. Mine's at 120. Doctor says I'm a good responder, that I respond well to it, but I just had low testosterone. And that has helped with every single symptom of my low testosterone. It has also helped with my depression and anxiety, and has helped out with my PTSD in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't heal it or cure it, but it does make a marked difference. So I'm taking advantage of that instead of the buddy of mine, he suggested I look into the hormones. He was kind of a fat slob. Just to be honest, and he says he will be a fat slob. So it ends up, and he's taking testosterone, doing the same thing. He's on TRT for low T, but he doesn't go to the gym. He doesn't do anything. So he hasn't blown up into a mass monster. But for me, I was into health and fitness long before I got onto TRT, kind of off and on and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, it ended up, I'm taking advantage of that. What I like about the studies of health and fitness is that all of the studies for fitness and exercise and repetitions and getting hypertrophy or strength gains are all done on people that don't do steroids. So the techniques and stuff that I've learned through reading studies and meta-analysis all come from the results of people who don't do steroids. But then there comes this thing, it's like, well, why would you do this? Why would you do this if you have pre-existing conditions for your heart? And unfortunately, we still see a lot of people that, succumb to this. There is some other stuff, premature death in bodybuilders, what do we know? Anabolic steroid use, and it goes through, and there's a table here where it talks about the type of death: pulmonary embolism, heart attack, seizure during sleep, stroke, heart attack, and it just goes through. And drug testing or the lack of drug testing. This is really interesting. Because where there's a lack of testing, there's a lack of safety for the participants within that sport. So, the more testing that you have for anabolic steroids in a sport is generally better for people as a whole, for the athletes. But for example, like right here, an apparent lack of drug testing in competitive bodybuilding has enabled a culture where bodybuilders openly engage in, the cocktails of steroids. And this is a stark contrast to other sports in which athletes generally do not admit to intentional drug use even after testing for banned substances. The premier governing body for competitive bodybuilding is the IFBB. Now, I've heard of the IFBB, bodybuilding policies regarding drug testing, which conforms to the World Anti-Doping Association code. This is really cool because they kind of take great pride in this, and we test our participants, and so they're the champions for health and longevity. No, they're not. They're in it for money. In recent decades, these rules appear to have been minimally enforced. The IFBB and its member affiliates host more than 6,000 competitions annually. We're not talking 6,000 competitors. We're talking 6,000 competitions with multiple competitors. Let's say you got 50 to 100 per competition. Do the math. That's a lot of people. But recently, the most available data indicates that they only submitted a total of 171 samples for analysis. Wow. So it's like, we're all for drug testing. We test our athletes, and it's like, that's like nothing to the amount of people that participate in your sport, that is actually nothing. For comparison's sake, in other sports, International Powerlifting Federation submitted 787 samples, and the International Weightlifting Federation submitted 3,238 samples. So you can continue on, and it talks about the abuse of steroids, cardiovascular risks, and so on and so forth. There's so many cardiac hypertrophy with dysfunction, without dysfunction, kidney problems, mortality rates, the whole 9 yards. We just get a plethora of information that just shows how bad steroid abuse is. And then there's the part about the, extreme dietary practices with bulking and cutting. Back in the day, it was bulk, eat everything that you could get your hands and eyes onto, to eat in mass amounts of protein. And I've done bulking before, but with that amount of protein, it's going to cause problems with your kidney and liver and so on and so forth. And it will tax your kidney and liver. And for the most part, for the average person that goes to the gym 3 to 5 days a week, it's not going to be a problem. But if you get into the place of where, even if you're a natural bodybuilder and you're doing 1 gram per pound of body weight over an extended period of time because you're chasing the gains as much as possible, it will show up on your blood labs. And I have personally experienced that, and without being on TRT. So, that's something to take into consideration. There's something to be said with trying to gain muscle and then taking time off to relax and regroup and just be normal. You can't be gaining all the time. And unfortunately, what we're seeing with kids today is that they're just trying to gain mass and they're trying to be shredded 24/7, 365, and it is taxing their body to no end. Talk about weight cutting and cycling and just trying to get as lean as possible, 4% body fat and crazy stuff like that is absolutely insane. Here's another one, anabolic steroid related deaths, toxicological findings, and so on and so forth. This is another really good article. It's kind of dry, but it talks about all the different effects that happen, that can happen with the abuse of steroids. So yeah, we get to this place of where steroid abuse is getting so common and it's unregulated. And I get people that contact me multiple times a month offering me anabolic steroids, not only testosterone, but Tren and Dianabol and Winstrol and all of the big, the bodybuilding drugs and, insulin. All of these things that can only be prescribed by a doctor. I have people contacting me multiple times a week. Probably the majority of them are scams, but there are people that offer them. And what I find funny is that when I report these people that send me a message through Messenger showing pictures of what they can send me and what I can buy from them, illegal drugs because they're not a doctor. And they list all of the items. They show pictures of the items that they're going to sell me. And when I report that to Facebook, Facebook says, we it's all automated, but yeah, we went over it and we've seen that this doesn't, go against our community standards. And it's like, it's illegal drugs. In the aspect that these people are trying to sell you illegal drugs without a prescription, send them to you through the mail, is not against community standards. But if I say that a trans woman, a guy who believes he's a woman, thinks he can have a period and needs to go see, a gynecologist for treatment because he's a woman, and I disagree with that, my reply gets flagged and I get put in Facebook jail. And I was kind of like, well, why is that? And it's like, well, advertisers are making money off of these shit influencers and these people that are making tons of money by abusing steroids, even though it's bad for them, and so they turned a blind eye to it on so many levels, is what it comes down to. So it's just really disheartening that we've come to a place now where it's like, yeah, you report people for selling illegal drugs, and Facebook doesn't care. But then again, it's like, then we have people like Sam Sulek. We have people like who is just juiced to the gills. He's like 21 years old. He looks like he's in his 30s, mid 30s. even past that. But he's only 21 years old, and the dude is way more jacked than Joey Swole. Obviously, he's abusing steroids. And now we have people that are younger than him, that are teenagers, that are extremely jacked as well. So in other words, these people are starting steroids in middle school and high school. Middle school, junior high, and high school. And they are just jacked to the gills. And unfortunately, with this rise of, I call them shit influencers and, muscle freaks and things like that, to get clout and get social media and be on TikTok and make money for every single post that they make, from advertisers who don't give a damn that they're ruining their health and probably going to die at an early age. They just want the ad revenue. We're going to see more and more people do that. And, no wonder we see more people dying in their 20s. Now, these are just the bodybuilders. Remember, we just looked at the bodybuilders that are dying in their 30s and their 20s and so on and so forth. And now with the social media and Instagram and so on and so forth, more and more of these influencers are coming out and they're jacked as all get out. And it's way past their natural potential. And unfortunately, it's going to take a toll on their bodies. And it's going to lead to an early death. So, yeah, it's just very problematic, and it goes back to that mentality. Let me see if I can find that video, because I think you will be pretty amazed. The mentality of people that say, well, you only live once, I have no regrets. And one of the people that says they have no regrets with that addict mentality is Ronnie Coleman. Now, Ronnie Coleman was a bodybuilder. He was extremely jacked. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find a picture of Ronnie Coleman. And there's tons of pictures of him. So let's take a look at this. I mean, Ronnie was huge. He was huge. I mean, just look at all this. He was an 8-time Mr. Olympia, and he was just a monster. He did like 800-pound deadlifts, and you could see him there. It's just insane. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, the same, when we look at Ronnie Coleman, it ends up he is 59 years old. I'm 58. He's not like this anymore. And, yeah, he says he has no regrets. 8-time Mr. Olympia, you would think, okay, well, he's 58 years old, 59 years old. We're about a year apart. And, people say, oh, well, he's the best, and you're jealous because, you haven't won any bodybuilding competitions. How many, Mr. Olympias did you win, Steve? And it's like, thankfully, none. And here's why. Because this is Ronnie Coleman is a perfect storm of what happens with body dysmorphia, severe steroid abuse, and neglecting that you have a problem. And you're going to pay the piper, and it's either going to be earlier or later, but you will pay. And here is what it looks like. So that's not Ronnie Coleman. No, that's not. This guy here is Ronnie Coleman. That guy is Ronnie Coleman at 59 years old. 8-time Mr. Olympia winner. This is some hard footage to get because a lot of people respect him as being Mr. Olympia and, saying, hey, well, he was Mr. Olympia. So they just don't, they don't show this much. You'll get some pictures of him with crutches or things like that, but I know people in their 80s and 90s that have better mobility and quality of life than Ronnie Coleman. And like I said, it was a combination of things, of his body dysmorphia, his steroid abuse, he wanted to get better, bigger and better and faster. He wanted to be on the top forever. And unfortunately, it got to a place of where, he disregarded the surgeons and the doctor's orders for recovery. He's had like 13 surgeries. He had complications. And the majority of those complications came from him going back and training and lifting heavy weights when he wasn't supposed to. And so it ended because he wanted to be big, he wanted to be the best, and of course more steroid abuse and so on and so forth. And that is just rough. I mean, to be in that condition is just horrendous in my opinion. So yeah, something is to be said for this, and it just makes me question people like Joey Swole. Even Joey Swole is an awesome guy. I like him. I like his positivity, his stuff on gym culture and all this, and how we should be positive and get the stupid idiots out. Don't make fun of people in the gym and so on and so forth. I really appreciate that. But with that being said, with his heart issues, why is he still doing steroids? Well, again, it comes back to, I think, a body dysmorphia. I think it comes to where, okay, I'm making money doing this, being in the condition that I'm in, and I'm using steroids and abusing them, but you're going to have to pay the piper. So this is going to affect your quality of life. And there's people that have used steroids that live long and healthy lives, questionably when it comes to health, that, some older bodybuilders have lived into their 70s and 80s and then passed on, but they didn't have the level of abuse that we see today in bodybuilding and just in the fitness industry as a whole. So yeah, I just find that very problematic of what's going on in the fitness industry today. And then we've got a ton of people that are obviously on juice, on gear, on steroids, and people that were, I got this way naturally and so on and so forth. And then a few years down the road, of course, then it comes out, well, yeah, I was taking steroids. Liver King, now they call him the Needle King. He said it was all natural, and it's obviously he wasn't. And then it came out that he was spending $11,000 a month on steroids and growth hormone and so on and so forth. And it was in fact not eating bull testicles that made him that condition, or the supplements of the bull testicles that he ground up and put in his supplements that would make you that way. There's still a lawsuit for that as well, in case you didn't know. But now, people like Liver King have gotten to the point of where they were outed, and now they're left in this place of desperation, and now they're doing crazy, stupid stuff. And it really kind of makes me wonder, why would somebody who's married to somebody like that allow them to keep doing that? It is absolutely insane. So Liver King is one. What is another one? Cali Muscle is another one who, this guy promotes or purports to be this gangster guy. Well, actually, he just got arrested for robbery, and he had 11 years in prison. And then he saw that people doing steroids and bodybuilding were making bank. And so he did steroids, and then he had heart issues, and he kept doing steroids. And then he quit doing steroids, but he still leaves all of his steroid videos up, and so he's still making money off of those. He used to sell supplements, and now he's selling other crazy stuff. So it really, at a point, of course, he's playing a character, but the fact that you can see the degradation of the person's character as a whole has gotten to a place of where it's just obscenely stupid, and the information that they put out is so not true. And yet we have millions of people that follow that guy and other people like him because of the steroid abuse. And then so he's gained his fanboy base. And if you say anything bad against him or Ronnie Coleman or whatever, they'll always come back with, when was the last time you won a Mr. Olympia? It's not about the number of titles. Like I said, I'm a year away from Ronnie Coleman, and yet I can run upstairs, I can jog, I can swim, I can run, bike, whatever, lift. I'm in very good shape for my age, even though I'm in chronic pain because of some accidents and some military injuries that I have, and it will only get worse over time. I'm doing the best for health and longevity that I can. I'm using science-based techniques to do so. We're talking about nutrition, we're talking about exercise, we're talking about, progressive overload, we're talking about high volume, low repetitions, low volume, high repetitions. We're talking about tempo during your exercise and so on to get the maximum amount of effect that I can with training based off of studies of people who didn't do steroids, meta-analysis and so on and so forth. So, when we see people like this that are basically offering the young people of today a shortcut to being buff, and then they get buff, and then they can make money from it, and then they get body dysmorphia because bigger is better, and bigger is better, and bigger is bigger bank, and more money, and so on and so forth. It's this never-ending cycle of abuse, And it's just like the abuse and just like the mentality of drug addicts. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, this one's only ended up being 40 minutes, which is a lot shorter. But yeah, who's going to be next to die? We've got more and more people dying in their 20s from steroid abuse that are having heart-related incidents. And I don't understand why somebody like Joey Swole, who has pre-existing heart conditions, whether it's genetic or whatever it is, why would you put your heart under that undue stress? It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense, especially after all the studies and looking at everything and making an informed decision. But that makes me question, did Joey really make an informed decision? I don't think so. I think it's got into body dysmorphia, and the same thing with Liver King, the same thing with Kali Muscle, and the same thing with Ronnie Coleman, is that this body dysmorphia is plaguing the health and fitness industry. And unfortunately, the better you look, the bigger you look, the more clients you're going to get. So, I give information away for free. I don't have a dog in this hunt. Joey Swole takes clients, and so do all these other people, the majority of these other people. But the problem is that, all of this stuff is available if you just read. But nobody wants to take the time to do that. Nobody wants to take the time to make an informed decision because they don't want to go over the information to begin with. They don't want to spend the time to say, hey, what are the complications and the risks of taking steroids? Nobody wants to do it anymore. There's people that have come up to me, young kids in their 20s, when I was in Hawaii and working at 24-Hour Fitness, working out at 24-Hour Fitness, they would come up to me and say, hey, what steroids are you on? What cycle are you on? I'm like, at that time, it's just, no, I'm just on TRT, and it's 100. Oh, how much? 4, 5, 600 a week? And no, it's 100. And they couldn't believe it. And I'm looking at these 20-year-old kids, in their mid-20s, and it looks like they went to the gym a little bit, but they tell me how much they were taking, Tren, D-ball, all of this stuff, 400 or 500 milligrams. And it's like you looked like you barely went to the gym. So obviously their nutrition isn't good. Obviously their routine isn't good. Obviously their recovery isn't good. And they're in hopes that if they take all of these steroids, that they don't need to put in the work. But you do have to put in the work to get the results. But even then, with the abuse of steroids, it's going to have an effect on your body. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be good. You're going for a short-term satisfaction over long-term health and longevity. And most young people these days don't understand that. So, it is what it is. And I don't know. But what do you think? Does it matter that Joey Swoles has heart conditions and that he's doing anabolic steroids? Is that a risk? Would you do that if you were in that position? Continue to do anabolic steroids? Or is it just he gets a pass because he's the CEO of Gym Positivity? Whereas somebody like the Liver King, we put the Liver King up, and then now that he admitted to doing steroids and it was found out that he lied to everybody. He's evil, but Joey's good. But when we filter past all of the evil or good or positive or negative, anabolic steroids are going to have a negative impact on your life, aside from the muscle mass that you gain. It is going to tax the system of your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your brain, your organs. You look at people who have, they do autopsies on bodybuilders, supposedly natural bodybuilders, and of course supplemented bodybuilders who do steroids. Enlarged organs, enlarged heart. One guy, his heart was in that list of, his heart weighed 833 grams, where the average heart weighs 300 grams. Yeah, it got to that point of where you see the superficial. You see the results on the outside that you're getting bigger on the outside, but you don't see the havoc and the damage that is being racked on your body on the inside. And even then, some people are like, I don't give a damn, because my identity is wrapped up in this persona. My identity, my being, my life, my livelihood, the way I make money this is the only way that I can do it. You see people like Joe Linder, you see a lot of other fitness influencers that got big and strong and jacked and 24/7 cut, lean, and shredded the entire year. And you don't think that that's going to have a negative effect? Yeah, that's a special kind of that, and that just goes to show how serious body dysmorphia can be. So, while I like going to the gym and I like getting big, uh, I like putting on muscle, I like putting on size. I'm pretty much at the max of my potential. So, at that when it gets to that point, I'm done. You know, I'm done with doing that. I'm not going to jump that fence and get into anabolic steroids because it's not worth it. And I want to live a long life, and I love my wife. My wife loves me, and we want to be together for the long haul. Maybe it's different for other people. I don't know. Maybe you don't like your spouse. But yeah, it's something that the trade-off is not acceptable. The levels of risk are way too high, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see guys like Sam Sulek and other guys that are younger than him, that are almost as big and jacked as him, that are going to die from cardiac issues. Strokes, heart attacks, so on and so forth, seizures, embolisms, and aneurysms, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, very interesting stuff. And with that being said, today's the gym day, is chest and back, so I'm going to go do that, get my little workout in. But yeah, we're seeing more and more people die, and I think it's going to get worse over time because society as a whole has accepted this as being okay. Because way back in the day, steroids wasn't really accepted. It wasn't. People didn't openly admit it. There's still bodybuilders. You got Mike O'Hearn. He says he's all natural. Obviously, he's not. You see, actors and things like that. The big burly actors and so on and so forth. They still don't admit to, like The Rock, don't admit to doing steroids or anything. And you look at his physique over time, and it's just like, it has to be. It absolutely has to be. Otherwise, you would defy everything in the physical realm of the world. And if you want to do them, that's absolutely fine. But unfortunately, their example is leading people down a road, especially younger people, into a place of where they take a pill, they do the shots, and they don't give a damn about the damage that's going to be done on their body. And they end up dying in their 30s and in their 20s. And I don't find that as an acceptable risk. So, put what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear it. And any type of comments, pro, negative, neutral, you see both sides or only one or the other, put that in the comment section down below. But I think this is getting to the point of where we're peaking with this, and we haven't even got to the peak yet. It's going to get worse. So, yeah. All right, there you have it. Peace.